There is this north-south divide, Fabian. They've talked about it, that the study and the research has proven that. And yet, definitively, there is more government funding per head in the north-east and the north-west than there is right now in the south-east and the south-west, despite London as an entity on its own getting more. How is it then that the north, there are more deaths and a different standard of living if there's more money per head coming from the government?
Well, first, I dispute how much more money there is coming. I think if you look carefully, you'll find, for example, in transport, considerably more is spent in the south. But let's sweep that aside for a moment. The issue for me, and I see this day in, day out as a constituency MP, is the inequality. The inequality, for example, in pay for people who are in work, the inequality, for example, on 0 hours contracts, the stress that that brings to families who are working and yet have to claim benefits, and the way the benefits system is now so appalling that people are penalised when they're actually in work trying to claim the benefits to make ends meet.
It's not a new problem, though, is it? This is a 50-year study. Successive governments, including your own, have faced similar figures.
Yes.
So it's not just about, as Jeremy said, there has been a huge effort in the last 5 to 10 years to pour more money in. Maybe we're not seeing the benefits of that. But what is the real long-term root problem?
Well, I think the long-term problem is, firstly, that London has become almost a city-state in its own right, with a separate economy. That secondly, the public services infrastructure, for all the claims that are made about the increased investment in the north and the northeast and northwest, the fact is that public services generally are being starved of cash and resources, and austerity is taking its toll. The best way to ensure that we have greater equality of resources and incomes is to actually ensure that we have good quality public services that serve the people they're meant to serve. But I think fundamentally the problem we have is the concentration of power and wealth in one part of our country.
I don't think any of us would disagree with that. If I can bring in Dr. Hilary again, you talked in the last hour about how, yes, it's about money, but it's also about infrastructure, it's about stress-related how life is affected if you haven't got the money, if you haven't got the job opportunities, depression, suicidal thoughts, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, where there's deprivation, people indulge in escapist behaviour, so they tend to smoke more, they tend to drink more alcohol to excess, and certainly if you look at the regional stats, you'll see more hospital stays as a result of suicide, self-harming, alcoholic cirrhosis, obesity, and these things all influence the mortality rates that we're seeing in the north compared to the south. And this is particularly true of the young. This is more worrying. It's the 25-year-old age group to 45-50 that have the highest discrepancy between premature death rates in the north compared to the south. 49% higher in the age group 35 to 44 and 29% higher premature deaths in the age group 25 to 34. That's very worrying, and that's got worse in the last 20 years.
It's very depressing, isn't it, if you are like my family waking up in Chorley in Lancashire this morning. It feels almost a bit like a premature death sentence, and they can't go out and invest in the infrastructure of the north and encourage businesses to come in as individuals. So what do people do?
I think you have to remember that we're talking about north-south divide, but there are patches in the north which are very wealthy, very well-to-do, and actually there's different areas of deprivation, within a short distance of each other.
So but the overall figures that come out that way, that's the worrying thing.
Absolutely. So it's about education, it's about
this is what I wanted to say, because politicians, and nothing against Fabian at all, I completely get, but Kate made the point that successive governments have failed to invest. Is it not about education? Can we all do more?
It's about a number of things, isn't it? It's about having jobs, it's about creating wealth, it's about economics, it's about social deprivation, but education is right up there. I think it's very important to give people the wherewithal to better themselves and to say, let's make the right choices. There's no doubt that health creates wealth.
Yeah.
And if you give people the wherewithal plus the education, they can make the right lifestyle choices Fabian, to stay healthier.
Let's go back to Fabian Hamilton, if we can. As we were saying, successive governments haven't delivered on the infrastructure and getting the big companies to invest in the north. If you were in power now, What would you do to make that happen?
Well, I think, first of all, we need much more regional devolution and regional and local democracy, so that local people can make decisions in their regions, in their localities. We also need to put back the investment in things like further education, which has been starved of funds, and is one way, as Dr. Hilary said, one way of ensuring better health is better education. And yet the education maintenance awards that Labour put in place have been removed. The incentives for young people to go back to college if they've failed or left school early are being removed, and the opportunities that they have are no longer there. It's much more difficult now, if you're a 23-year-old, to leave work and go and study full-time in an FE college, and yet that's exactly what we need. We need more local resources. We need local people to raise money locally and spend that money on what they need in their regions.